A, defamation/slander damages, past and future, $21 million. B, emotional distress damages, past and future, $31 million. Total fair, just, and reasonable damages to plaintiff Jennifer Hensel and against Alex Jones and Free Speech Systems, add line A and line B, $52 million.
So there was the verdict in the case against Alex Jones and his company Free Speech Services. You know, you needed an accountant to keep track of those numbers as they kept piling on for the different family members. There were 7 family members, or I should say 7 families, most of them with 2 family members each, plus the former FBI agent. So it was quite the list of numbers. I remember I was out in the yard working on something, didn't have any pen or paper with me, so I was writing on a piece of concrete and I was trying to calculate it. And thankfully, Richard Schoenstein reached out via Twitter and said, "Hey, you're right. You got the math right," because it was so fast and furious. $965 million, which it's a headline. It's not a reality. We know that. But now this newest wrinkle. The judge, Barbara Bellis, has come out with a couple of orders. One, your assets are frozen. Not a surprise. It may be closing the barn gate long after the horse is gone, but it's in place. And also, by the way, now she's figured out what the reasonable attorney's fees would be in the case, because that's sort of how they couch punitives in Connecticut. It's very complicated, but I happen to know you've done some math on this yourself. So give me your take on these new orders.
I did some math. It's almost as dangerous as you walking around with a knife as me trying to do math. But here's how she did it. There are 2 components. There are the claims for defamation and infliction of emotional distress. Those are common law torts. And in Connecticut, you can only get your attorney's fees as punitive damages for a common law tort. You can't actually, it's funny, Connecticut law says punitive damages are intended to compensate the victims, not to punish, which is weird. We could get into that.
Yes,
but
that's through the looking glass kind of analysis there. It's just weird.
So the measure here is the attorney's fees are 1/3 of the compensatory damage award because they had a contingency arrangement with their lawyers. So that is roughly $322 million of the $965 million damage award, and that is the attorney's fees component in that part of the case. Then there was another claim under the Connecticut Unfair Trade Practices Act, or CUTPA. There is no cap, there is no crazy law like that on punitive damages on CUTPA. The judge had a lot of discretion, and she ordered $150 million of punitive damages on CUTPA. So if you add the 322 to the 150, and there was a little bit of additional change lying around, it comes up to $473 million of punitive damages plus $965 million of compensatory damages. Just go down to the bank and get it.
Okay, Rich. Well, at some point I glazed over there because they promised me there would be no math practicing law. Catherine, let's talk realities here. You know, what kind of money is really going to go to these plaintiffs? And again, we know this is based on the Sandy Hook belief by Alex Jones that it was a hoax and all these family members were injured as a result of the defamation and the things that he said about them. So, but let's talk real world here, Catherine. What's your take? Who's getting any money and where's it coming from and how much?
Yeah, the real world is it's going to be very difficult for the families to get all of this money. I really hope they get as much as possible, if not all of it. As Rich mentioned, the calculation is about, I'll just round it off to 1.44 billion, 1,440 million. You know, we're lawyers, we don't want to talk about numbers much, but these are big numbers that the families need to get from Alex Jones. That's why the freeze of his asset was very important, because of it's my understanding that some family members are now trying to transfer some of the money from each other. So there will be a lot of tracking involved, and like you mentioned, there will be many accountants involved to make sure that the assets are frozen, and any bankruptcy that his companies will take will also be taken into consideration here. Yeah,
and Rich, we were talking about the crypto angle here. You know, by its nature, you aren't tracking crypto anywhere, anyhow, and getting your fingers on it. And we know that the Jones actively sought contributions in the form of crypto. What's your take on that?
Well, that's where I'd be going if I was trying to collect these damages. Collection of a damage award is its whole other area of law. There are lawyers who specialize in that and do it for a living. And I would be looking to bring in people here who know about crypto and can try to track down those kind of assets. The one thing I will say is no matter how much money they're able to collect from Alex Jones or his companies, this is going to have to pretty meaningfully affect his life. He's not going to be able to act rich because he's got to say until this award is paid or he wins on appeal that he doesn't have any money. And that's going to change his lifestyle.
Yeah. And Catherine, the other wrinkle we haven't talked about, which is a reality for him, is he's in bankruptcy on the business entity side. So there's a trustee involved. That person's got their fingers in everything.
Exactly, and like what Rich said, there's a whole bankruptcy, other lawyers involved in here, and they have to make sure that, again, the freezing of his assets and any transfers that he tries to do to say that he is bankrupt will be all traced, because in bankruptcy there is that provision that you cannot transfer any money or sell any asset at a particular point, so that it can be tracked for any intentional thing that you do.
Yeah, and I know that depending on the chapter filed, I'm no BK expert, but there is a look back period which protects those kinds of anticipatory changes, because remember, he got whacked in Austin, Texas, down near you. So he knew something might be coming, so he might have done a little planning, estate planning, sort of. We'll keep you posted on this. It is a crazy case.